Stein. What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
The Albert Einstein principle. You too are a field of energy. It's right underneath your fingers, baby. That's all you have to understand. Everything is right underneath your fingers. Ray Charles, American singer and pianist. The premise. I'm not going to bore you with an entire text on quantum physics. I've read dozens, and believe me, they're not pretty. But there are a couple of rumors going around that must be quashed before we go any further. For starters, who you think you are is not who you really are. You think you have a limited life, something like 70 or 80 years, and then you wrinkle up, get rheumatism, and keel over. Kaboom! It's all over. But this isn't any more true than that dream you had last night about the tall blonde. Your body is an imposter, a tiny fraction of who you really are. 90% of who you are is invisible and untouchable. This body that I think is Pam Grout, this skinny 5'10" woman with perpetual complexion problems, is just a speck of who I really am. No more the real me than those 2-month-old baby pictures where I'm wearing the embarrassing pink bonnet. Don't feel bad if you've fallen for the trap that you, your body, and the world around you are nothing but matter. It's not easy standing on the brink of a revolution. These new ideas that scientists are finally starting to take seriously are challenging everything we believe about how our world works and how we define ourselves. The whole truth and nothing but the truth. Everything you know about the universe and its laws is more than likely to be 99.99% wrong. Fred Alan Wolf, Ph.D., American quantum physicist. What Einstein discovered and what that famous equation E equals mc squared means is that mass and energy are basically two forms of the same thing. Energy is liberated matter, and matter is energy waiting to happen. There is a huge amount of energy, a preposterously huge amount, trapped in every living thing. You, making the assumption that you're an average-sized human being, contain no less than 7 times 10 to the 18th joules of potential energy. That may not mean much to you now, but let's pretend you want to make a point. If you were a bit more cunning and knew how to liberate this energy, you could use it to explode yourself with the force of 30 very large hydrogen bombs. In other words, the material world is nothing but dense energy patterns. Scientists put all these subatomic particles into a particle accelerator, collided them, and ultimately discovered that there is no particle at the source. It's all just pure, unbounded energy, vibrating so fast that it defies measurement and observation. So despite how it looks to the naked eye, you are energy. In fact, nothing in the world is actually solid. Not you, not this book, not the chair you're sitting on. Break the solid world down to its tiniest components and you'll find dancing particles in empty space. It only looks solid because the energy is vibrating a little slower than the speed of light. That's what energy is, vibrating particles. That means you, this book, and the chair are actually vibrating. Energy is a pretty nebulous thing. You can't see it, scratch it, or take it out to dinner. But you can, and do every day, influence how it flows through you. And since it's the building block of everything in the universe, that's a powerful thing. Try this experiment that I learned from energy pioneer Donna Eden. 1. Bring your palms toward each other like you're about to clap, but stop 3 inches before your hands make contact. 2. Now twist your wrists so your arms form an X. The wrist should be at the center of the X and still 3 inches apart. Number 3. Draw your attention to the space between your wrists. Because your wrists contain several energy centers, the energies will connect and most likely you will feel some sensation in the area between them. Number 4, try moving your wrists about an inch closer and then out a few inches, back and forth. See? What did I tell you? Your energy. At each moment, you mold and shape this energy by your consciousness. You do so with every thought, every intention, every action. How you feel, what you think, believe, and value, and how you live your life affect how the energy flows through you. To put it in the simplest terms, this affects how you vibrate. And how you vibrate affects what you pull in from the interlocking, interbalancing, ever-moving energy field in which you swim. You pull out of this field and into your world anything that happens to be vibrating on the same frequency or wavelength. Let's say you're feeling excited, joyful, and grateful. Those emotions send out high-frequency vibrations that magnetize more things to be excited, joyful, and grateful about. Anything with the same high frequency will prance on over to your energy field. However, if you're scared, guilt-ridden, and convinced there's a terrorist around every corner, you're sending out low-frequency vibrations that will attract ugly things into your life. We always attract our vibrational match. We are the initiators of the vibrations and therefore the magnets or the cause. It works the same way as a tuning fork. Ding a tuning fork in a room filled with tuning forks that are calibrated to different pitches, and only the ones calibrated to the same frequency will ding too. And they'll ding all the way across the Minneapolis Metrodome. Like forces attract, it's a classic rule of physics. There is no you and them. Anyone who is not shocked by physics has not understood it. Niels Bohr, Danish physicist. As if you didn't already have enough weirdness to contend with, I'm going to throw in one more tiny detail. Everything in the physical world as we know it is connected to every other thing in the physical world. You are attached and engaged to one underlying universal energy field. The field, as Daddy Albie Einstein said, is the only reality. Things appear separate because they're vibrating at different wavelengths, just as the note C vibrates at a different wavelength than B flat. Each of these vibrations creates a strand in the electromagnetic field, which in turn instructs energy where to go and what to do. This pulsating energy field is the central engine of your being and your consciousness. Where is this field? Well, there's no place it's not. Everything in the universe is hooked up to the energy field. All life forms, whether African zebras, the hostas in your garden, or those melting icebergs. Your intelligence, creativity, and imagination interact with this magnificent and complex energy field. We may look like separate bodies with separate ideas, but we are all just one big pulsating, vibrating field of consciousness. Anecdotal evidence. It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. Mark Twain, American author. Edwene Gaines is one of my favorite Unity ministers. She's funny, she's wise, and she knows how spiritual principles work. She travels throughout the U.S. giving prosperity seminars in which she teaches people how to live more abundant, God-centered lives. But like the rest of us, Edwene had to learn about spiritual principles through trial and error. She tells a hilarious story about her first big demonstration. A demonstration, according to Unitics, that is, folks who hang out at Unity churches, is when you pull something you want or need out of thin air, more or less. At the time of Edwene's first demonstration, she was relatively new to spiritual principles. She was what you could politely call broke. As she says, I didn't have 2 dimes to rub together. But she heard this crazy rumor from her spiritual teacher that not only did God like her, but he wanted to open the gates of heaven and pour out his blessings, if she simply learned how to direct her energy. But first she had to know what she wanted and when she wanted it. That was easy. Within 15 minutes, Edwene filled a whole yellow legal pad with her desires. New green shoes, a new male partner, a new car, and so on. She decided she also wanted a week's vacation to Mexico City. She'd never been there, but she figured it would be a great place to practice her Spanish. Plus, she'd always wanted to see the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and Diego Rivera's paintings. Edwene didn't have any money for the trip, so writing it down was, as she put it, a bit of a joke, but she figured what the heck. She even went down to a travel agent, looked at brochures, and made a tentative reservation 3 months in advance of the date she decided she wanted to travel. I figured the worst that could happen is I'd be embarrassed in front of the travel agent when I wasn't able to pay, Edwene explained. That's only because you don't feel rich, her teacher said. You're not vibrating as a rich person. Well, I could have told you that, Edwene replied. Have you had a look at my checking account lately? I'm having trouble paying my electric bill. That's why you need to go out and do something to make yourself feel rich, her teacher insisted. Edwene decided her biggest challenge was the grocery store. I was one of those people who bought the bare minimum. Beans, cornbread, flour, the basics, she says. I didn't dare splurge on any of that foo-foo stuff. Nothing like bubble bath. I had a budget. So the next time she was at the grocery store, she decided to saunter over to the gourmet counter just for a gander. She noticed a bottle of olives stuffed with almonds. She took one look at that and just knew that was what rich people ate. So she bought it, took her groceries home, and called her friend Lana. Lana, I'm coming over. We're going to sit by your pool, and we're going to get out your new crystal wine glasses and drink that bottle of wine you just bought. We're going to eat the olives I just splurged on, and we're going to pretend we're on an exotic vacation in Mexico City. Say what? Lana said. She eventually agreed to play along. And sure enough, they sat by Lana's pool, drinking wine, eating olives, laughing and pretending to be vacationing in Mexico City. Well, darling, which pyramid should we visit tomorrow? Edwene would ask. Or maybe you'd rather go to the beach. And then Lana would answer, let's do both, and after that we can walk through the marketplace and listen to mariachis. They had so much fun that Lana decided she wanted to go to Mexico City too. The next day she went down to the same travel agency and made her reservations. Within a week, Lana's mom called her and said, hey, guess what? I'd like to pay for that ticket to Mexico City. And I was the one doing the affirmations, Edwene now jokes. A few weeks later, the travel agent called and informed Edwene that unless she came down to pay for her ticket that day, she was going to have to let them go. Okay, I'll be right there, Edwene said to the travel agent, even though she felt like Old Mother Hubbard with the completely bare cupboards. She got in her car and decided it was time she had a severe talking to with God. God, she said, now I've done everything I know how to do here. I've made my list. I've done my affirmations. I've been acting rich. The way I figure it, the rest is up to you. And big guy, since this travel agent is calling, I'm going to go down there, and that money had better be there. On her way to the travel agent, she got a hunch to stop by her mom's house. Now, I know myself well enough to know that I was probably thinking that if I told my mom about Lana's mom buying her ticket, maybe she'd agree to buy my ticket, Edwene admits. She went into her mom's house, acted just as sweet as can be, and told her mom about this vacation she and Lana had cooked up. She finished the story, looked up at her mom, and said, and you know what? Lana's mom even agreed to pay for Lana's ticket. Isn't that wonderful? That is wonderful, Edwene's mom said. What are you going to do? Discouraged, Edwene concluded her visit and started to walk out the door when her mom asked if she'd be kind enough to run out and get her mail. Her mom's house had a long driveway, so Edwene walked out to the mailbox, kicking at stones and cursing under her breath. On the way back, Edwene decided to take a little look-see through the mail. She noticed a letter addressed to her. Now, understand, I hadn't lived at my mom's house for 15 years and hadn't even received mail there for 15 years, she says. Edwene, not having a clue who this person on that return address was, ripped open the envelope. Lo and behold, there was a letter from an old roommate who had gotten married since she and Edwene had lived together 15 years earlier. At the time, they were both young, poor, and forced to decorate with what Edwene called Early Salvation Army. Not 3 months after they moved in together, Edwene landed a job teaching overseas and left the roommate, the apartment, and the used furniture behind. Here's what the letter said. Dear Edwene, I was looking through the Houston phone book the other day and saw your parents' address. I wanted to tell you that I've gotten married and moved into a nice new house with my husband. We furnished our house with new furniture, so I sold all that furniture we bought 15 years ago. Turns out, would you believe it, that some of it was pretty valuable. I didn't feel right keeping all the money since we had worked so hard to furnish that place. Please find a check for your half of the money. And do you know, says Edwene, it was the exact amount I needed to pay for my ticket, to the penny, plus $100 for spending money. Edwene also added a funny sequel to her story. Sure enough, Lana and Edwene had a marvelous time in Mexico City. They shopped, sat by the pool, visited pyramids, and strolled through the markets. And everywhere we went, Lana got flowers, Edwene says. We'd be walking through the marketplace, and the mariachis would stop playing and bring Lana a gardenia. One day we were on the bus, and this guy jumps on, hands Lana a rose, and jumps off. One night at supper, this big white box arrives at our table. Lana opens it up, and it's a dozen orchids. By this time, I'm starting to feel left out. I say to God, look, buddy, I need a sign that I'm loved too, Edwene says. Not 15 minutes later, the waiter at the restaurant brought over the hors d'oeuvres. And that God has such a sense of humor, Edwene laughs. Do you know what that waiter brought? Olives stuffed with almonds. The method. The Western scientific community, and actually all of us, are in a difficult spot because in order to maintain our current mode of being, we must ignore a tremendous amount of information. Cleve Baxter, plant researcher and former CIA agent. Even though this principle is one of the cornerstone spiritual principles, remember, spiritual just means the opposite of material, it actually first came to light not in a church, but in a physics lab. Yes, it was scientists who first discovered that, despite all appearances to the contrary, human beings are not matter, but continually moving waves of energy. In this experiment, you're going to prove that your thoughts and feelings also create energy waves. Here's what you do. Get 2 wire coat hangers, easy to obtain in most any closet. Untwist the neck of each hanger until you've got just 2 straight wires. These are your Einstein wands. Or rather, they will be when you shape them into an L, about 12 inches long for the main part and 5 inches for the handle. Cut a plastic straw in half. You can score one free of charge at any McDonald's. Slide the handle that you just bent inside the straw. It'll make your wand swing easily. And bend the bottom of the hanger to hold the straw in place. Now, pretend you're a double-fisted gunslinging Matt Dillon from Gunsmoke, with the wands held chest high and about 10 inches from your body. They'll flap all over the place at first. Like I said, you're an ongoing river of energy, so give them a few moments to settle down. Once they've stopped flapping, you're ready to begin the experiment. With your eyes straight ahead, vividly recall some very unpleasant event from your past. Depending on the intensity of your emotion, the wands will either stay straight ahead, weak intensity, or will point inward tip to tip. The wands are following the electromagnetic bands around your body, which have contracted as a result of the negative frequency generated by your unpleasant thoughts and emotions. Now make your frequencies turn positive by thinking about something loving or joyous. The wands will now expand outward as your energy field expands to your positive energy flow. Okay, now keep your eyes straight ahead, but focus your attention on an object to your far right or far left, and watch your wands follow your thoughts. The more you play with this, the more adept you'll become at feeling that vibrational shift as you change from one frequency to another. The lab report sheet. The principle, the Albion principle. The theory. You are a field of energy in an even bigger field of energy. The question. Could it be true that I'm made up of energy? The hypotheses. If I am energy, I can direct my energy. Time required. 2 hours of experimentation. Today's date. Time. The approach. Wahoo baby! With nothing but my powerful thoughts and energy, I can make these wands rock and roll. Just think what other magic I can undoubtedly do. As a famous president once said, bring it on. Research.